Have you ever had that moment where something feels so right, and then out of nowhere, everything just goes quiet? Like, you thought something special was happening, but then the other person pulls back. Disappears. No explanation. No closure. Just silence. Yeah, now imagine that happening with someone like Jackie Kennedy. And the one who disappeared? It was JFK. Yes, that JFK. The man who would go on to become president. The charming, young senator who had the whole country captivated. After they slept together for the first time, he didn't speak to her. Not for a few days. Not for a couple of weeks. 5 months. 5 months of nothing. No calls. No visits. No sweet little notes. Just silence. Can you believe that? It sounds unbelievable, especially when we think of them as this perfect, iconic couple. But the truth? Their story was way more complicated than the public ever saw. And honestly, it's kind of relatable in its own weird way. So what actually happened between them? Why did JFK disappear like that? What was going through his mind? Let's talk about it. Because once you know the real story, you might never look at their relationship the same way again. So here's how it all started. Back in the early 1950s, Jackie Bouvier wasn't just some pretty face. She was smart, well-read, and had this quiet confidence about her. She worked as a photographer for the Washington Times-Herald, and people really noticed her style and sharp mind. Then there was Jack Kennedy. Young. Handsome. Already a senator. Already making waves. He had this easy charm that just drew people in. The kind of guy who walks into a room and suddenly, everyone wants to talk to him. They met at a dinner party. A setup, really. And the spark? It was instant. You could feel it. Jack was intrigued. Jackie wasn't just beautiful, she challenged him. She was different from the girls he usually dated. And that got his attention. They started seeing each other casually. And then one night, things got more intimate. They slept together. You'd think that would be the start of something deeper, right? But nope. After that night, he was gone. No follow-up. No, hey, had a great time. No invitation to dinner. Just, gone. And Jackie? She must have been confused. Hurt. Maybe even embarrassed. She'd opened up to someone she thought had real potential. And then he vanished without a trace. But here's the thing. It wasn't that JFK stopped caring. It wasn't even that he regretted what happened. It was more complicated than that. And there were actually a few big reasons why he pulled away so suddenly. Let's break it down. The first reason? He was completely consumed by his political ambitions. Back then, JFK had one goal in mind, the presidency. Everything he did was carefully planned. Every move, every relationship, every word spoken in public, it all had to fit the image he was building. And falling in love, or even looking like he was in a serious relationship? That wasn't part of the plan. Not yet. He wasn't ready for something real. At least, not emotionally. He saw relationships as potential distractions. And Jackie? She made him feel something. Maybe too much. That scared him. It was easier for him to pull away than to deal with those emotions. And that leads to the second reason, his health. Most people don't know this, but JFK was really sick behind the scenes. He was battling Addison's disease. It's a rare condition that left him weak, exhausted, and in constant pain. He had to take medications just to function. He wore a back brace under his clothes. And no one really knew how bad it was. He hid it well. Even his closest friends didn't understand the full picture. He didn't want to appear weak, not to the public, and definitely not to someone like Jackie. So when they got close, maybe a little too close, he panicked. He didn't want her to see that side of him. The side that wasn't strong. That wasn't presidential. That vulnerability? It scared him. So instead of getting closer, he disappeared. And then there's the third reason, his family. The Kennedys weren't just any family. They were practically American royalty. Powerful. Strategic. Always planning their next move. And Jack's father, Joe Kennedy, had big dreams for his son. He wanted Jack to marry someone who was polished, Catholic, well-connected, and ready to be a political partner. Someone who could play the part. Ironically, Jackie fit that mold perfectly. But at the time, Jack wasn't ready to settle down. Not emotionally. Not mentally. The idea of being tied down, even to someone as incredible as Jackie, felt suffocating to him. He wasn't ready for commitment. So after that night with Jackie, when things started to feel a little too real, he bailed. Because staying would have meant facing feelings he didn't know how to handle. It's wild when you think about it. A man like JFK, charismatic, confident, so put together on the outside, was actually running from real connection. And he wasn't just running from Jackie. He was running from himself. There's a quote from historian Nigel Hamilton that really puts it in perspective. He said, Kennedy was terrified of emotional entanglement. Not because he didn't care, but because he cared too much, and it interfered with the image he was trying to build. That says it all, doesn't it? JFK was a master in the public eye. He knew how to light up a room. How to walk into a space and instantly make people feel like they mattered. He had this way of looking at someone, just for a second, and making them feel like the only person in the world. That was part of his magic. That charm. That presence. Crowds loved him. Voters trusted him. Reporters followed him like he was already president. He knew how to deliver a speech that made people believe. He knew exactly how to shake hands, smile at just the right moment, say just the right thing. But in private? When the cameras were off? When it was just him and someone who actually wanted to know the real Jack? He didn't know what to do. He froze. It's strange, right? This guy who could speak so confidently in front of thousands, who could inspire a nation with just a few words, suddenly fell silent when it came to something as simple as saying, "Hey, I care about you." For 5 long months, Jackie didn't hear from him. Not a single phone call. Not a note. Not even a second-hand message from a friend. Just silence. And think about how that must have felt. From her side. Imagine opening your heart to someone. Letting your guard down. Letting yourself believe that this might actually turn into something real. And then, nothing. Like the whole thing never happened. She must have gone over it 100 times in her head. Did she say something wrong? Did she come on too strong? Was it her? Did she misread the signs? Was she just another name on a long list of women who got charmed and then tossed aside? That's the kind of silence that doesn't just confuse you. It haunts you. But here's the thing, it wasn't about her. It was never really about Jackie. It was about him. JFK was dealing with things he never really talked about. Not then. Maybe not ever. He was scared. Genuinely scared. Not just of commitment. Not just of getting hurt. But of being seen. Really seen. Underneath the polished image, behind the speeches and the suits and the headlines, he was a young man trying to figure out how to balance the life he wanted with the life he was expected to live. He was torn. He was pulled in one direction by his own ambition, the pressure to succeed, to carry his family's dreams, to live up to this almost mythic vision of what a Kennedy was supposed to be. And at the same time, he was being pulled in another direction by something more vulnerable. Something softer. Something real. Emotion. And for someone like Jack Kennedy, who'd spent so much of his life building walls and wearing masks, real emotion was terrifying. So he ran from it. Not physically, but emotionally. He shut down. He disappeared. Because for him, facing that kind of intimacy, true intimacy, was scarier than any political opponent, scarier than the press, scarier even than the disease slowly breaking down his body. Eventually, though, he came back. He reached out. He apologized. And over time, Jackie gave him another chance. Because there was something between them that neither one of them could fully walk away from. It took effort. It took forgiveness. And it took a whole lot of patience. But they worked through it. Slowly. Step by step. And what they built after that? It became one of the most talked about, most photographed, most analyzed relationships in American history. But those first few months? That rocky beginning? They were hard. They were messy. They were confusing. And they were painful. But maybe the most important thing to remember is, they were human. We often look at famous couples, especially historical ones, like they're flawless. Like they were meant to be. Like every moment was romantic and every problem had a clean solution. But real relationships, no matter who you are, aren't like that. They're complicated. They're layered. They're full of mistakes and misunderstandings and hurt feelings. They're full of silence and distance and awkward, unfinished conversations. Even between people like JFK and Jackie. So the next time someone brings up their story, and talks about how glamorous they were, how elegant and picture-perfect their marriage looked, remember this. Remember that behind all the glitz and charm, there were two real people trying to figure it out. Two people dealing with fear, pride, insecurity, and all the things the rest of us deal with, too. Because being famous doesn't make you immune to emotional confusion. In fact, sometimes, it makes it worse. Sometimes the pressure to be perfect, to always say the right thing, always look the part, makes it even harder to show up in a relationship and say, I'm scared, or I don't know how to love someone the right way yet. That's what makes this story feel so real. Sometimes, people pull away not because they don't care, but because they care too much. And they don't know what to do with those feelings. They don't know how to express them in a way that feels safe. So they shut down. They vanish. They leave without explaining. Because it's easier than being vulnerable. And when you see it from that angle, it makes JFK feel less like an icon, and more like a young man just trying to hold it all together. Now let me ask you this. What do you think? Do you think JFK was just being selfish? Playing games? Testing control? Or was he honestly overwhelmed, emotionally frozen, because he had no idea how to balance love and fear, connection and ambition? Was it his upbringing? The pressure from his father? The weight of living up to the Kennedy name? There's no easy answer. And maybe that's the point. Because sometimes people aren't one thing or the other. Sometimes they're both. Strong and scared. Confident and confused. Loving and distant, all at once. So yeah, I'd really love to know what you think. Take a second. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about relationships. About fear. About what it means to run from something good just because it feels a little too real. And if this story made you pause, or helped you see these people differently, go ahead and give the video a like. It really helps. Or maybe send it to a friend. You never know who might need to hear this right now. And if you're into stories like this, the kind that go beyond the surface and show the real moments behind history's most famous faces, you're absolutely going to love what's coming next. Because here's the twist. Even after JFK came back. Even after the apology, the reconnection, the sweet words, Jackie almost didn't marry him. Yeah. You heard that right. There was a moment, right before the wedding, when she hesitated. When she wasn't sure this was the life she wanted. When all those old doubts came rushing back. That story? It's even more intense. And it tells you a lot about who Jackie really was, beyond the pearls, beyond the fashion, beyond the first lady image. So if you're curious about that, make sure you don't miss the next video. And hey, thanks for hanging out with me today. Really. It means a lot to share these stories with you. To talk about the parts of history that don't always make the textbooks, but live in the quiet spaces in between, the moments that make these people feel a little more like us. If you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and tap that button. It's quick, it's free, and it helps the channel grow so we can keep bringing you more stories like this one. Take care of yourself. And remember, everyone, no matter how perfect they seem on the outside, has their moments of silence, their 5 months of not knowing what to say. We're all just trying to figure it out. See you in the next one.